EU leaders descended on London today for the first UK-Europe summit to try and reset relations post-Brexit. The Prime Minister rubber-stamped a deal with the EU ahead of the meeting, but events are dividing the public. One of the questions being asked, does anything in the deal actually help people here in the capital? Well, our political correspondent Simon Harris has been speaking to the Chancellor at Downing Street and he joins us from there now. Simon, what did Rachel Reeves have to say?
Ronke, the Chancellor claims this is a deal which will lead to lower food and energy prices and boost the economy by £9 billion. Earlier, the Prime Minister and the EU President Ursula von der Leyen went aboard HMS Sutherland close to Tower Bridge for a celebratory lunch on board Britain's fastest frigate. Among the benefits we've been promised are that British air passengers won't have to use e-gates at some European airports and pet passports are coming back. There was also talk of a youth mobility scheme which would allow young Britons to travel to Europe and young Europeans to work here. That would be especially welcomed by London's hospitality sector. But in the end, that part of the deal wasn't finalised, although it's still an aspiration. So I asked the Chancellor if she was disappointed.
But we're going to work with our partners on a youth experience scheme to make it easier for young people in Britain to be able to go and work in European Union countries and for people from the European Union, young people, to come here. Now, that will be time limited. There will be caps on numbers. There will be no right to bring dependents or have access to benefits. But I think it is a great way for young people to be able to experience different cultures by being able to work for a short period of time or study overseas.
But that part of the agreement is still to be signed. Boris Johnson, the former Prime Minister and of course former London Mayor who negotiated the original Brexit deal, described the new agreement as very bad and a betrayal. And Reform UK politicians were equally scathing.
It's just another step in the wrong direction, and it's just relentless. March, the wrong way. And the thing that's even scratching my head as an MP is, why don't these people listen to the people? We're democratically elected, but instead of acting out their will, they're handing more power to Brussels.
Well, clearly it's good news. It hasn't gone far enough. We would like the government to have been much more braver and more ambitious in the deal, but it's a good stepping stone forward to a much closer relationship with the EU that is going to help our economy.
Someone who was far more enthusiastic about the deal, not surprisingly, was London's Mayor, Sir Sadiq Khan, who of course was an ardent Remainer. City Hall claimed that the deal would especially benefit London's food manufacturing sector, which is said to be worth more than £3 billion and is the biggest food manufacturing sector in the UK.
Simon Harris at Downing Street, thank you.
When Sir Sadiq Khan swept to a third term as London Mayor, one of his big pledges was to eliminate rough sleeping in the capital by 2020, but that's a huge task. Nearly 4,500 people were seen sleeping rough in the capital between January and March this year. That's almost double the number when Mayor Khan was first elected back in 2016. So his new plan involves 500 empty social homes that will be refurbished with £17 million of government funds. But as our political correspondent Simon Harris reports, it's not a plan without problems.
Every morning, Londoners are confronted with the stark reality of rough sleeping. Homeless people on the pavements, in sleeping bags, under flimsy shelters and in cardboard boxes. At the launch of City Hall's latest initiative today, Cora recalled being advised she had to be seen bedded down for 3 nights before she could get help.
Waiting for someone, random person to turn up. Anything could have happened to me.
There were 8,096 rough sleepers in London in the year before Sadiq Khan was first elected in 2016. Last year, that had risen to 11,993, an increase of 48%. Do you accept there are more rough sleepers now than when you were first elected?
Oh, there's been, since 2010, an increase by 170% of those sleeping rough on our streets in London. But look, between 1997 and 2010, the last time there was a Labour government, we reduced that by more than 60%.
The Mayor plans to spend £17 million refurbishing 500 empty and derelict social homes for rough sleepers. The Conservatives urged him to work with the London boroughs.
I think he should be working more in concert with them, because there'll be a lot of people in temporary accommodation who are homeless who will say, well, how have these people voted me in the queue? And we don't want to get into that argument.
There are almost 11,000 empty council homes alone in London, although some face demolition. Sadiq Khan has set a target date of 2030 when he hopes no one will be sleeping on the streets. But to achieve that, he also needs the government to deliver on its promise to build 1.5 million new homes. Housing campaigners want to know how many of those will be affordable.
From the government, we haven't yet received, nearly a year into government, a specific target of how many they're going to build. I'm quite disappointed at that, and I hope they do give a target, because for them to meet that 1.5 million homes target, they're going to have to build and construct council housing.
There are multiple reasons why someone might end up sleeping rough, but London's chronic housing shortage doesn't help. Simon Harris, ITV News.
Next tonight, if you don't already live in a 20-mile-per-hour zone, that could be about to change. Over half of London's roads now have reduced speed limits and, according to Transport for London, boroughs with them have seen a big drop in crashes and deaths, which certainly backs up the Mayor's plans for a further rollout next year. Here's our political correspondent, Simon Harris.
It's a trend which is going in one direction. More than half of London's roads have had the speed limit cut to 20. Some Londoners are fans, others, especially drivers, are exasperated.
There are certainly plenty of roads around London where it just seems nonsense. I feel like I could get out and walk quicker.
I use a car a lot and I'm more than happy to travel at 20 miles per hour.
I think there are some places it's probably not wholly appropriate in that, there are some roads that don't have all this mix of people and everything else, and there are people just trying to get somewhere a little bit quicker.
In 20 London boroughs, 20 is now the default speed limit. The other 12, mostly in outer London, have kept it at 30. Transport for London claims new research shows the 20 limit saves lives.
The changes that have been made on TfL roads, the main roads, over the last few years has seen a 25% reduction in people being killed, a 60% reduction in the number of pedestrians being hit. All of this research begins to stack up all around London, showing it saves lives.
The new speed limits are catching some drivers out.
I've just left my office where a gentleman has brought in 4 summonses, single justice procedure notices, within 4 weeks of each other. 24, 25, I think there was a 26 and another 24. He's going to lose his licence. You could argue he shouldn't be driving at 24 mile an hour. The man works nights.
The lower limit doesn't just apply to side roads. This is the A41 Finchley Road at Swiss Cottage, one of the main arterial trunk routes into London. Despite being a multi-lane highway, the speed limit is 20, if you can actually get to 20. The radio disc jockey Tony Blackburn isn't a fan. He tweeted, "This is where the 20 mile an hour limit is stupid. This is Finchley Road, London, and I was travelling in at 4:30 this morning at 20 miles an hour. Come on, this is just stupid."
It causes all these traffic jams for absolutely nothing. It doesn't achieve anything.
20 miles per hour is good.
Sometimes it makes more traffic than it helps, but probably could save life.
The lower speed limit is part of the Mayor's Vision Zero, aimed at ending all road deaths. TfL plans more 20 mile an hour zones next year. Simon Harris, ITV News, Southwark.
Well, other news now. There's a big change on part of the rail network this weekend, but you may not notice it. The government's getting its hands on South Western Railway after the Prime Minister's promise to renationalise the network. All passengers say they want is an affordable service that runs on time. But while the government has promised improvements, don't expect fares to get any cheaper. Here's our political correspondent, Simon Harris.
1996 and Britain's railways are under new management. Trains operating out of Waterloo were the first to be sold under the Conservative government's privatisation policy. Fast forward 29 years and it's all change again. On Sunday, South Western Railway will become the first firm to go back into state ownership under Labour. Passengers know what they want from renationalisation.
I think it's the cost and the reliability are probably the most important things for most people that use the trains.
I think the trains are a bit old and need updating. There's very few spaces to do Wi-Fi, so if your battery's low.
I think they could probably improve it by making the rush hour have more carriages, because it's quite often people at Surbiton that are left there because they can't get on.
We have been here before. In 1948, Britain's bankrupt rail companies were nationalised for the first time, leading to the creation of British Railways. This latest period of public ownership will eventually see the trains branded Great British Railways. Passengers hoping this new era will lead to cheaper fares are likely to be disappointed, at least in the short term. With the government expected to announce big spending cuts next month, more taxpayers' cash for the railways seems unlikely. SWR bows out to mixed reviews. Its critics say its performance has been dire.
A third of their trains are late at the moment. Lots of the stations don't have step-free access. Things like this have to be addressed. The most damning indictment of SWR is they took delivery of 90 new trains in 2019. 6 years on, only 6 of them are in service. It's things like that that have got to be addressed.
SWR says it hopes the new trains, called Arterios, will be in service in the summer. One rail union wants nationalisation to go further, to include contract workers like cleaners and catering staff.
Agency staff or subcontracted staff who work on a 0 hours contract, they won't have sick pay, they won't be in an inferior pension, and that's just not acceptable. There are vast swathes of them all over the railway in all various guises. They need to be part of the public railway as much as anyone else does.
The government claims renationalisation will be a watershed moment. One long hoped for but never delivered improvement could be a simpler fares structure with fewer confusing ticket options. But it's not here yet. Simon Harris, ITV News, Waterloo.
It's been a quarter of a century since the first London mayor stepped into office, becoming the most powerful directly elected official in the country. Since then, the devolvement of local authorities means some mayors in other regions are now more powerful than their counterpart in the capital. But what does that mean for the future? Here's our political correspondent, Simon Harris.
I therefore declare that Kenneth Robert Livingstone is duly elected the first Mayor of London.
When Ken Livingstone won the race to be London's first mayor in 2000, he became the most powerful directly elected politician in Britain. But like his successors, he wanted more. Taking control of London's suburban rail network has long been on City Hall's wish list.
The most obvious extra power, I think, in the short term to be given to the mayor would be to take over the commuter rail system inside London. So not just running the tube and the overground and the Docklands Light Railway, but taking over commuter rail lines inside London, metroisation as it's called.
But successive governments have shown little enthusiasm for handing the mayor more power. Boris Johnson set up a finance commission which floated the idea of City Hall keeping the proceeds of stamp duty.
What we're saying is give us the London's share of the stamp duty receipts, allocate that for housing in London, and we will build the homes that the city needs.
Johnson's pitch came to nothing. The Mayor of London already has considerable power, controlling public transport and a big say in the police, fire service and major planning decisions. But Andy Burnham, the Mayor of Greater Manchester, has even more freedom than his opposite number in London when it comes to spending government money.
There are strengths and weaknesses in both systems, but we've moved now to an integrated settlement with the government where we can allocate funding not according to what the Whitehall silos want, but more flexibly across all of Greater Manchester, building from the bottom up with our councils.
The government is now deciding whether to devolve more powers to local authorities. Sir Sadiq Khan is hoping to make the case for London. Would you like local tax raising powers?
We're keen to make sure that the government understands that when we have good policies, they benefit in terms of extra taxes paid, jobs being created and so forth. We're keen to speak to the government about sharing the proceeds of some of that growth.
So that's a yes then. One idea is for a tourist tax levied on hotel guests, but the mayor also faces a rival power grab. The London boroughs would like the government to force the mayor to include them in any big decisions. Simon Harris, ITV News.